Good afternoon. In about 2 weeks, we will all be remembering the Passover Seder in some significant way, either at home with our families or with a small group of friends, and or with some kind of larger congregational event. But more than anything else, as we remember the lesson of the Passover, the deliverance of ancient Israel from its bondage to the Egyptians, there are many different theological and spiritual dynamics at play. For most of us, we look at the judgments upon Egypt, the dynamic deliverance of Israel being brought through the Red Sea, being brought later to God's mountain, being delivered God's instruction, and then entering into this long wilderness period, and then the population later being prepared for entry into Canaan, and with that, the full reception of God's inheritance. And in many ways, that basic lesson teaches us about our own salvation, going through a period of trial and bondage to sin, being brought to salvation via the shed blood of the Lamb, Yeshua, being immersed in water, entering into initial sanctification and discipleship, being brought to God's instruction, going through a wilderness period while we sort through what it means to be a disciple of the Messiah, and then entering in fully to God's purposes, his inheritance for us. So I know that's a very brief teaching and there are a lot of details I left out, but that's how important the Passover is and what it initiates for us as redeemed sons and daughters of the King. Now, if you were in ancient Israel at this time, 33 or 3,500 years ago, depending on when you date the Exodus, there would have no doubt been a huge amount of tension in the camp. There would have been a huge amount of tension in the homes of the Israelites in Egypt as some of the final judgments and final exchanges between Moses, Aaron, and the Egyptian Pharaoh were taking place. And while you had heard that your God was going to deliver your people from the servitude of the Egyptians, after all of these different plagues had taken place and the Egyptian Pharaoh had refused to let the people go, you had to have been thinking that this has got to hit some kind of significant point. Either we're just not going to leave and this God we have placed our trust in or our belief in has misled or lied to us, or something is going to happen and he's finally going to be true to his promises and let us go from Egypt. And indeed, we know the story all too well, the story of the Passover, the unleavened bread, the death of the firstborn, and finally the Pharaoh saying, "Get out of here." And how many of us right now, as we look at what's happening in the world, we see things getting increasingly out of control. We know that in the past year, there have been, huge amount of tensions because of election 2024. We know that what occurred here in the United States, many of us were hoping for, but we knew that it may not have happened. And now that we've seen a few months of this new presidential administration and new changes, new waves of change every single day, we're waiting for that breaking point. We're waiting for that, okay, when are we going to be able to get back up on our feet? What is this, golden age President Trump has been talking about? I think it's about getting out of debt, and I think it's restoring some degree of prosperity. We either need to get back on our feet, or we need to get the end times over with, and in which case Trump is just going to be a thorn in the side of the New World Order, among other things. And indeed, with some of the unplanned trials of the past week, which we're still sorting through right now behind the scenes with our ministry, I'm wondering, what is this Passover going to mean to me? I went through a similar thing a few years ago, 6 years ago, and every Passover is different. We don't quite know what the future beholds, but we do serve the God of the Exodus, and as we serve the God of the Exodus, we know that just as the population of ancient Israel was probably, look, either we need to be taken out of Egypt per his promises, or we just need to resolve that these things were not true. We know that the God of the Exodus delivered his people, but they had to go through a difficult period of tension, a difficult period of probably doubting, and then finally seeing the Lord's promises come to pass. So what does this mean for this upcoming Passover? Well, what it doubtlessly means is that we need to be sensitive to the Lord right now. We need to be praying to him. We need to be appealing to him for guidance, for wisdom, discernment. More changes are doubtlessly in store, whether they're for the better or for the worse. We don't fully know. I know that a lot of people think that they have the end times figured out and micromanaged. Other people have ideas. They have collections of notes. They've got lists that they've compiled, and we'll just see how much of it is accurate or how much of it is inaccurate. But I encourage all of us right now to be pressing in to the King of Kings. Ask the Lord to show you, I certainly am, what important things do I need to take note of with Passover coming up this year? And is this going to be a Passover different than other years? We wait and see, and we'll probably pick this up again before we remember the Seder